Hello, hello, hello. It is me, your True Hill Phenom SP3. First time Sports Keto Wrestling. This is their pay-per-view preview series, and I am here to host for WWE Elimination Chamber 2021. I am joined by my esteemed colleague, a great writer over at Fightful Wrestling, the co-host of the Distraction podcast, which is one of my favorite wrestling podcasts because it doesn't just talk about wrestling. He talks about a lot of things. He is, as you see, the chubby chief, the one, the only, Joe Hulbert. What's going on, brother?
I'm very good. That was a grand intro. Very, very exciting. I like it.
The one, the only, Joe Hulbert. What's going on, brother? We got an echo.
Seems bad. Don't know where it's coming from. I can also hear it. We're off to an incredible start. Okay. Are we done with the echo? We good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. I question your take on the Distraction being one of your favorite podcasts. But other than that, good writer. Yeah, I'll accept that. We're talking about Elimination Chamber. We're really excited too, right? We really are.
Yeah, we talked about it before we came on live here. So a quick reminder to everyone watching, if you're watching on YouTube, any of the social media platforms, give this video a thumbs up. Share this video with all your wrestling friends, your family, everyone that's a wrestling fan. Definitely want to tag them in this video if you're on social media. And of course, you could subscribe to the Sports Keto Wrestling YouTube channel for all this great content. Later on today, we got Smack Talk, the post show for SmackDown. But right now, we are talking about WWE Elimination Chamber 2021. Joe, simple question for you to start off. Are you excited for this show?
That's not a simple question at all. You know that. It's a very weighted question. That's difficult. I am. Here's why. I do think this is one of their stronger. I'm weary of calling it a gimmick, a stipulation, concept. Though I'll never love them being just a show in the calendar year, I think this is one of their strongest. I always enjoy these matches. Most of the time. My excitement, though, is it feels limited by the two lineups, which we're going to get into. So I would say I'm more excited than I am, other times, purely because I know I'm going to enjoy those matches for the most part. There isn't too much intrigue, though, beyond the physical, they should be good matches,
Yeah, I mean, I would say that consistently WWE has delivered with their major events since they moved to the Thunderdome. I think they've gone on a consistent path. I mean, a lot of that, in my opinion, is down to our tribal chief, Roman Reigns, and him delivering in the main event and title match spots. But you also got Drew McIntyre. This is such a great roster that no matter what the booking is like, what the creative is like, they're going to deliver in the ring. So I do agree with you. Their roster always sets the expectations high for every major show.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, you mentioned the tribal chief, and I think it's difficult with those pieces in play at the top of the card, especially. It feels, particularly now, and this is not to knock anyone without naming any names, there are less anchors up top, right? It feels like there's more, I look at the lineup and it's like whether I think it's intriguing or not is one thing, but talent-wise, there's not a lot of misses here in these two chamber matches. So I agree with you. I think this is one of those shows that by the end of it, the conversation is either going to be, wow, that really over-delivered, or it's going to be, oh my goodness, what have they just done? Why is Shane McMahon main event in WrestleMania? Time will tell. I don't know.
I was seriously confused and intrigued and interested by the fact that Shane McMahon didn't put himself in the Elimination Chamber, because I thought that's why he was there. It's either to bring back Raw Underground or insert himself in the Elimination Chamber so he could set up his WrestleMania match.
It is like an alarming return, right? The timing of it is a little bit, look, people can love Shane, hate him, whatever, but they see him, for better or worse, as a major star. And this is a two-night WrestleMania, and they want major stars. Hey, timing's looking a little bit dangerous on that one, so we'll see. I'm not sure.
Do you think we see Shane at Elimination Chamber? We did get kind of a setup for him and Braun Strowman when they made the WWE Championship Elimination Chamber. So do you see we get more of that here, or or we're not going to get any Shane? It's not going to be Shane down live like it was a couple of years ago.
I hope it's not. I'll say that much. But I think my guess would be, in fear of, predicting stuff that isn't Elimination Chamber, I would assume Braun gets the match at Fastlane, right? Then I do think they're going to do Braun and Shane. Like, I honestly do. It seems like the kind of match Shane could do one of his stunts in. Everyone has a great time, that kind of deal. But I think it will come later. I wouldn't expect Shane on Sunday, which is a good thing, I think.
I think that's a safe bet there, and that's a good thing for all of us fans. So we're gonna start off with the card here, and this card, to say it lightly, is in a state of flux, Joe. So bear with us, ladies and gentlemen watching. Once again, comment in the comment section on Facebook, wherever you're watching social media, YouTube, and let us know what you think about this Elimination Chamber card. Of course, give us your predictions as well, because our first match up is a very interesting prediction for us. We talked about this before we went live here, Joe. We got on the card for the Raw Women's Championship, Asuka was supposed to defend her title against Lacey Evans. But if you saw WWE Raw this week, Lacey Evans is with child. So congratulations to her. Congratulations to her husband at home, or if we're keeping it kayfabe, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, having another child at 66? How old is he?
I think it's a little older, but I'm not saying nothing.
I was gonna say, does that work? The production system work that far in advance? But that's a whole different type of prediction show that we would do there. But Asuka was supposed to verse Lacey Evans. So my question to you, Joe, for our first prediction here, do you think we are gonna get a Raw Women's Championship match? And if so, who does Asuka verse? And then finally, who wins?
Wow, the questions don't get any easier, do they?
Nope.
This is borderline terrifying situation we've got here, because there's a few different ways, right? So I'll make my prediction in the end, okay? But I'll map out some alternate scenarios and we can go through them together, okay?
All right.
The first one, which is probably the most concerning for the division, is Lacey is staying as an on-screen character and she's going to put Peyton Royce in her spot. I have no issue with Peyton. That feels like the least interesting way to do this, right? I would rather a fresh start. Can we move on? Then I move to what my prediction will be, which is that Charlotte, after 2 months of being this babyface character that is kind of undercooked, she takes advantage of the situation. She beats Asuka for the title. They get on the road to Mania for a match. Okay, Asuka is the babyface, Charlotte's the heel, which always felt like a simple play, even if not an inspiring one. That's my prediction. However, as I've mentioned elsewhere, this feels like the time to do something bold, do something different, make a star. I'm looking in Rhea Ripley's direction. I think you can benefit here from the fact that somehow you've had nothing for her to do all this time, and you slot her in. She becomes champion on night one, and she just goes on a run, and you build that division around her. Because frankly, as great as Asuka and Charlotte are, I don't know what's to be gained from a match between those at Mania at this point. It feels like a retread. I would recommend doing something fresh, but with that being said, my prediction, Charlotte Flair.
I like it. I'm gonna agree with the last part. I think that somehow, some way, Charlotte Flair is gonna walk out the Elimination Chamber with the Raw Women's Championship. I feel like the original plan was for Lacey to beat Asuka at the show, and then Lacey versus Charlotte at WrestleMania, with Charlotte winning the big match at WrestleMania. But now it seems like I think they're going to skip the Lacey part. Charlotte's going to be inserted here, and we have Charlotte versus Asuka. But I really like your Rhea Ripley plan, and I like it but I will make a caveat. I think that Rhea Ripley should be the challenger on the Raw Women's Championship side for WrestleMania. I think that, the full circle story of Charlotte versus Rhea with the side switch, with Charlotte being the champion, Rhea being the challenger for the Raw Women's Championship, is how you put over Rhea Ripley in a big way on the main roster. And I think that's what she really needs after the somewhat, as you can, disjointed push that she got throughout 2020 on NXT. I think she really needs to solidify herself and get the win back against Charlotte to really be elevated on the main roster.
I agree. I do agree. My concern is if you're getting to a destination that doesn't include Asuka, I wonder what that means for her moving forward. And we've seen this before. What was it, 2 years ago? She was headed to WrestleMania, and then she wasn't all of a sudden. So yeah. I'm with you. In my wrestling mind is exactly what you said, the redemption arc for Rhea. There's another factor here that we're not talking about that my friend Jeremy Lambert will bring up at every turn, which is the Fiendess, of course. Alexa Bliss. Yes. What was it, a month? Believe this or not, folks, less than a month ago, she beat Asuka. So you can go back to that at any time, for better or worse. Like, I don't think we should dismiss that either. How likely it is, I have no clue. It's impossible to guess. But there's a lot of play here, right? It is vaguely interesting, if we're being honest.
Yeah, it's like this is probably the most interesting and least predictable thing on this card. Because I think everything else, we could kind of see where they're going. This is in between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. They're not going to make really big moves, but I feel like this here is where the surprise is going to happen. And it's been consistent with either the Raw or the SmackDown women's side that they have kind of had the surprise on the show, because it was just 2 months ago at TLC, Charlotte returned to team up with Asuka to verse Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. But I mean, what you said about Asuka is so true. It just makes me so sad. Like, even when you think about just like 8 months ago during the pandemic, who was the MVP of the pandemic, those first stages? It was Asuka. She brought energy to those shows that didn't have energy because of the lack of crowd. And she just brought so much. She was the MVP on Raw. She consistently was entertaining, whether she was on commentary, a backstage segment, dancing with Kairi Sane, having a great match with Sasha or Bayley. And now it just seems like she's the third wheel in every feud. Ever since she was the third wheel to Bayley and Sasha's feud, it's been consistent. That's been her role ever since then.
100%. It's incredibly frustrating, but it could get worse because as we talk about this, we both know how much they love a moment, so to speak, right? You know, these moments that we look back on many times over. Do we think there is any chance that with some shenanigans, Lacey Evans lands one right-hand punch and wins the Raw Women's title as a pregnant woman? Because all I'm saying is she could come out the next night and vacate it and they do a tournament, whatever. They love moments. Would this shock you, honestly? I mean, I'm not trying to put this on anyone. I understand it's evil. I get it. But would it shock you? I don't know.
It wouldn't shock me because, like, I could totally see it where it's like the AJ Lee, Nikki Bella match from Survivor Series. I think it was like 2014 or something like that, where Brie distracted her on the apron and then Nikki hit one move to win the title. I think they could do that with Rick being the distraction, doing his little, he's got Asuka's mask on, just something weird, and then Lacey comes from behind, woman's right, 1, 2, 3, and we have the second ever pregnant Raw Women's Champion.
Yeah.
Like, in less than a year, we have 2 pregnant Raw Women's Champion. That's quite spectacular.
Amazing. I've been on this channel for 15 minutes and I'm already terrifying people. We should move on. But it's a fault. Again, it's like, it sounds silly because obviously it's all circumstance, but it has made this interesting, right? Like, we're sitting here, we've got like 18 different examples what we could do. I don't know. But hopefully it's something exciting. That's the real thing for me. This division has been so bad. And I think the talent pool is pretty good. There's no excuse for it being this bad. Whatever you do on Sunday, let's make it interesting. Let's make it fun. Let's get WrestleMania's Raw Women's title picture, on the right track. That's the key to me.
Yeah, 100%. Like, WWE unquestionably has the best women's division. Like, they've signed up the best women around the world. But, NXT has the best when it comes to their brands. SmackDown is consistent with the stories and the star power because they have Sasha Banks, they have Bayley, they got Bianca Belair. Raw is where they've been missing the boat, and a lot of that is down to how they treated Asuka in the last couple of months, with her being the Raw Women's Champion. And we have confirmation here from John Elite 45 for life. I'm pretty sure Rick is 74 years old. I am 100% sure that the reproduction organs do not work at 74. So the reality of this whole storyline, I'm just gonna say it's a little bit shaky. It's a little bit shaky, Joe.
But that's never stopped them before. Okay, this is nothing. This is no stretch for me. I mentioned the Fiendess a moment ago. I mean, I saw her transform 3 times in a match. This is fun. I can take an old man doing this. I can live with it. It's fine. No problem for me.
So we got Joe Pearl in the comments on YouTube. He says it's also extremely helpful that WWE is having sub 3 hour pay-per-views in the Thunderdome. Yeah, that has a lot to do with like the quality of the shows. Like you're in, you're out. It doesn't feel too long. And if there's like 2 or 3 good matches in like a less than 3 hour span, you're gonna say the show was good at least.
Yeah, it's been a lot better. I think they had a real problem beforehand where it was like the shows were getting excessive, right? And not everyone has to be on them. It can be feature matches. This isn't the day where people are paying $40, right? I think it's been a necessary evolution.
Yes. We also got Joel Pearl saying, I'm here for Joe Hilbert's horror show at the Elimination Chamber. Absolutely. That is the best way to say it. And we also got John Elite saying, actually second pregnant SP3. Well, Maria Kanellis was so 3. We would have 3 pregnant champions in a 2-year span. They are on IWGP title reign status. Like they're spreading it out. Not too many.
That's strong. That's a strong reference, my friend. That's very, very strong. Yes, that would be 3P is impressive anytime you do it. There you go.
Absolutely. So we have to move on. And once again, guys, join the conversation. You guys, by tagging your friends, you could also put your comments in the comment section on YouTube or any of the social media platforms. We will be shouting you guys out in the comment section. But we have to move on, Joe. We got more matches on this card, and another one that is in a state of flux is for the United States Championship, as I like to call it, the Dipset Piece Championship of the World. Bobby Lashley will be defending, apparently advertised to defend against Riddle and Keith Lee. But we have the monkey in the room is kind of that Keith Lee wasn't on Monday Night Raw. He's been inconsistent, to say the least, on Monday Night Raw as of late. There's been a lot of questions because Mia Yim, his fiance, congratulations to them, has recently tested positive for COVID-19. So there is a question of if Keith Lee is going to be on this card. So my question to you, Joe, do you think that Keith Lee is going to be in this 3-way? And if not, do we get a 3-way, and who wins?
Man, it's a difficult debut here, man. This is tough. The Keith Lee thing is such a mystery that, like, I mean, everyone's just like, you know, let's hope he's good, right? Whether or not he gets changed to a triple threat is going to be a result of what the finish is here. If this is purely a play to get the US title off of Lashley without pinning him, they're going to need a third body in there. It could be anyone from Gulak to Gaza to whoever you need. I don't know. Yeah. I would suggest that's what's happening here. I have come around to the idea that I think Lashley, there's no way you do all this with Lashley unless you have some kind of plan. And perhaps it's optimism, perhaps it's naive, hope. I think Lashley's the match for Drew. I honestly believe this, okay, right now. My suggestion would be keep the US title on him and do the old school, Adam Pearce looks at the line of contenders and says, Drew has cleared out every guy, the US champ's next up. That'd be my suggestion. I don't think they want to do that. I think they want to get that belt off of him if they're going to do so. So I would guess that if Keith Lee is there on Sunday, he wins the US title, pinning Riddle. If Keith Lee is not there, I will predict that Riddle is winning the US title by pinning whoever the third man is they can find to go in this match. That'd be my prediction. I just can't fathom, maybe I'm being silly here, they protect Lashley this way for a US title match at WrestleMania. I'm looking at who Raw's got for Drew, man. It's not loaded, right? That's my prediction right now.
Yeah, you're definitely right. When it comes to challengers for Drew McIntyre, it's very slim, and he is going to be taking out a lot of his potential challengers for WrestleMania in the Elimination Chamber match, which we're going to talk about. But I totally agree with you. Bobby Lashley has been the most protected professional wrestler on the WWE roster over the last year. Like, it's been insane how well he's been protected. The Hurt Lock is one of the best submission moves because no one seems to get out of it. Everyone seems to tap out. Even if he somehow loses, the person still taps out because the referee didn't see it or some weird like that. He says he's going to murder somebody. MVP doesn't want him to go to jail. This man is just interesting. He's a very intriguing character right now, and he's been very well protected. I know you are the head of the Bobby Lashley party, and I love your nickname for him, Big Van Bob, because he is getting a Vader in WCW 1991, 1992 type push on Monday Night Raw. So I think that Lashley is going to keep the U.S. title. I think that there's not going to be a third replacement. I think Keith Lee is not going to be on the show. I want him to be safe with his health. I think the big match that they're building to is Keith Lee versus Bobby Lashley for the U.S. title at WrestleMania, and they're going to use all this heat that they're building up for Lashley for Keith Lee to kind of get his momentum up, because he's lost so much momentum since being called up to the main roster.
Yeah, I mean, and even as the head of the Big Van Bob fan club, I can't argue with that. If the play is we're going to make Keith Lee, I'm for that. That's a traditional booking play. I'm with it. So I think that's fine. It's for the match's sake. I hope it ends up being a triple threat, regardless of which way they do it, because like Riddle and Lashley, I've seen now enough. I don't need to explore that again. I'd rather them do their playbook multi-man where everyone does their cool moves and rolls in and out. I'm fine with that this time. I'll take it. So it'll be interesting. Again, it's more mystery, right? We don't quite know what's going on. Yeah,
this is another one that has a lot of mystery. Going back to the first match that we talked about in that little mystery, we got Rick Ucchino, one of the hosts of Smack Talk, the post show for SmackDown, as well as all his great interviews. Check out his latest interview with Sami Zayn. He says, are we 100% sure they'll even do a Raw Women's title match Sunday now? They haven't had one on a pay-per-view since Clash. I could see them just scrapping it all together. I mean, this is another case of, like you said, with Lacey Evans hitting the woman's right and winning the title with one move. This is something that you could definitely likely see WWE doing, is them scrapping the match altogether and not even mentioning it on the show. I could totally see that.
Yes, I mean, in the middle of the show, I don't want us to just sort of go off on a tangent about how pointless our exercise is here, but man, it sure feels it when good brother Rick goes, are they even going to do a match? And we're like, no clue, Rick, don't know. Hopefully, I don't know, man, maybe not, I'm not sure. So, no, it's a fair question. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see a last-minute women's tag title match, if we see a 6-woman tag. They could do a million and one things. So it's a fair question. I'm not sure.
Yeah. We also got Danny Hart over on Facebook. He says Charlotte will take Lacey's place and beat Asuka. Charlotte versus Rhea at WrestleMania. Poor Asuka. I think that was the whole theme, the whole summing up of our predictions for the Raw Women's Championship match was poor Asuka. Just altogether, poor Asuka, how they treated her over the last year, it seems.
It's tough, man. She's an afterthought in her own division. It's pretty brutal, but it's hard to be surprised at this point, right?
Very true. We got Andrew Montague. I probably said that wrong. I apologize. Did Lee shouting out the jeweler for Mia Yim's ring get him heat with VKM, as Alex from Sour Grapes assumes? I think you would be the expert on what Alex was talking about. Do you think that got him heat with VKM, like him showing off that he's getting paid a little bit more than an NXT call-up should be making?
Listen, I'm good friends with Alex, but if I was the expert on what he's been saying, it would be a tough time upstairs for me. I mean, he does his speak. I can imagine him explaining this and it being very compelling. Maybe, man. People got heat for less, right? Like, wouldn't surprise me.
This is totally true. We also got Carice Lopez on YouTube. I'd like to see the U.S. title off of Lashley and put it on Keith Lee, honestly. If Edge doesn't pick Drew for Mania, let Drew have a feud with Lashley and make it something that the fans would remember. So you're right on the same wavelength as Joe here. He wants to see Drew versus Bobby Lashley. Do you think that it would have enough heat for WrestleMania due to they already doing it back at Backlash?
It all depends on how they use that match. If they pretend that match didn't happen, no. If you have MVP do a promo in which he says that match was the last time Lana cost my guy his opportunity, for a year since then, or 10 months, whatever it's been, he's dominated. We've been waiting for this opportunity. It's like I'm a boxing guy. It's the equivalent to me. The US title should be the equivalent of being like mandatory challenger. Like you're just you're knocking these contenders down. If he again, this is my take that he should win on Sunday, and then the whole thing should be champ versus champ. But even if not, all he needs to do is go after Drew, right? If he gets screwed on Sunday, whatever you want to do, I think look, MVP is such a great promo. I think he can heat anything up. He just needs the content to be right. He needs the dialogue, so to speak. The story's there, man. It's a great story, if you ask me. Like, I don't know if obviously it'll divide people. That's fine, but there's definitely a story to tell, I think.
Yeah, it could be very intriguing, and like we've just been saying all this time, they've protected Lashley this much. He needs a bigger match, even though I would love to see all this heat for him to kind of build up Keith Lee. How they built him up, and he's almost been more protected than Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre has taken 2 pins in the last year. Lashley, since Backlash, has taken none, if I remember correctly. Like, I think he had the 1 loss to Riddle in a non-title match, but other than that, he's taken 1 loss in over a year. So they need to kind of pay off on that protection and have a big match at WrestleMania.
And the key is, in fear of doing your transition for you here, my friend, we look at the other options for Drew, and it's like, there's nothing jumping at us. So that's why we're going in the Lashley direction. But maybe the Chamber will throw some surprises. We'll see. Obviously, that's a topic we're going to have to tackle at some point. The next hard question you're going to throw at me.
Absolutely. Let's go right to it. The WWE Elimination Chamber match. We got Drew McIntyre defending the title against Jeff Hardy versus Kofi Kingston versus Randy Orton versus AJ Styles, and the last entrant in the Elimination Chamber will be Sheamus. We got a preview of this huge matchup on Monday Night Raw in the Great Gauntlet match. I think it's said, and it deserves repeating here, WWE gets a lot of things wrong with their booking, but they just seem to get those gauntlets before Elimination Chambers right. And for the most part, over the last couple of years especially, they've gotten the Elimination Chamber right. When it comes to these big-time main event Elimination Chambers, they know how to book it where they're elevating somebody, they're putting the right person over at the right time, especially because this is such a strange time. It's in the middle of the road to WrestleMania. They have to put the right person over. So who do you see winning this one here? Do you see Drew successfully defending, or do you see a new WWE champion walking out of the chamber?
It's interesting. This is a very odd place I find myself here with this match, okay? I don't think it's a particularly interesting match. Not because the talent involved isn't great. It feels awful familiar, the guys. There's not like a new rising guy. And everyone's discussed this. I'm not the first one. So, I don't understand people don't want to go over it again. But I do think, as insane as this may sound, I think there's 4 potential winners in this match, which I think is very unique. And partly that is because how little obvious matches there are for Drew. You start looking elsewhere. So I think, for example, I'll go through the 4 for the sake of conversation here. So I think there's a chance, and it's the outside chance of the set, AJ Styles, who has also been super emphasized on Monday Night Raw. How many times has he been pinned since Go Raw? Once, twice, right?
Yeah.
I think there's an outside chance that he wins the title here and you do Edge and AJ at WrestleMania with Drew and Sheamus as a non-title. Do I think it's likely? No, but, we're having fun here. We're talking possibilities, right? So I'll say that. I think there is a very scary chance, in more ways than one, that Randy Orton takes the title here and goes on to face the Fiend Bray Wyatt for the title, which is very scary. Very, very scary. Spooky even, dare I say. But it's an option. I look at a Sheamus title win, which then sets up a rematch with Drew at WrestleMania for the sake of heating up that program. If they think that's their Mania program, it needs something, right?
Yeah.
Or you have my prediction: Drew keeps the title in the Elimination Chamber. In fairness, for all as much as you like, I'm as much as anyone, I love to be cynical and it's not that interesting. I think all of those are reasonable enough ideas. My guess is Drew. They've been steady on Drew. They've been firm on pushing him. Big thumbs up on that. They've committed to it at least. But there are options here, which does make it exciting to me. I'm going with Drew.
This is a predictable Elimination Chamber because of the people that's involved. Definitely, I agree with you there. This is probably the least excited I've been for an Elimination Chamber, and the whole former WWE Championship champions in this Elimination Chamber, it just doesn't fit with Monday Night Raw. Monday Night Raw have a lot of talent that could have benefited from being in this match, but one that I think will benefit from attacking somebody and getting in this match I've seen it a couple of times. Mustafa Ali attacking Kofi Kingston to insert himself in this match. I think it needs to happen. I think that would, give a lot of momentum to that storyline. I've seen a lot of people say they want Kofi versus Ali at WrestleMania, but it doesn't feel like WWE is on that path. And I think if Ali is to insert himself in the Elimination Chamber and kind of turn back the clock to 2 years ago and reverse the roles, I think that would give them enough momentum to go into WrestleMania as a hot matchup. Now, for the prediction of the actual match, yeah, I just think Drew McIntyre is going to win. If Sheamus didn't win the gauntlet on Monday, I would have went with Sheamus here because I would have been like you. That's the way they heat up that storyline. Sheamus just doesn't seem like a WrestleMania title match guy anymore. And the fact that they've spent the past 2 weeks telling us Sheamus versus Drew is not a draw, it's not a main event match, so that's why we made this Elimination Chamber. It just hurts that matchup just a little bit more, but I think they can deliver on the WrestleMania stage. So Sheamus winning is a viable option, but I just think that Drew has gotten so much momentum. He's going into WrestleMania, but he is the kind of the biggest question mark on the road to WrestleMania 37 of who is the right person to verse Drew. If they're going to do Edge versus Roman, who do you think versus Drew at WrestleMania?
That's it, man. And it's been a question mark for a long time. I mean, I admire Sheamus very much as a performer. I think he's great at WWE TV in terms of the segments that you can get out of him. I think his matches are always good. But the issue is, like, in terms of popularity, his peak was, I don't want to be dismissive, but it's like a decade ago. it's a long time. It's really hard to stay fresh. I mean, you look at Miz, I mean, it's the same problem. So I don't see him as a WrestleMania challenger either. But the problem is, I'm a Lashley guy, and someone could say to me, I don't see him as well. I'd be like, well, fair enough. There's not a lot of options here. That's why the rebel in my mind here is leaning me in this AJ Styles, the outlaw prediction here. Because if you want Edge as champ, I don't think Edge should beat Roman Reigns. Okay. Do I think he should beat Drew? Probably not. He could certainly beat AJ Styles. AJ doesn't need to beat anyone at this point.
That's true.
It's, a dream match, maybe not a dream match, but like AJ and Edge is a big match, right? I think there's something to it. Now, again, that may prove to be completely insane when AJ gets eliminated in 5 minutes on Sunday. We're just talking here. But the issue is the safe prediction of Drew is going to retain leads us both to that same familiar roadblock of like, but then what? Is it an outsider? Is it Braun Strowman? Are we kind of understating how they view Braun Strowman? Do they view him as the guy? I don't know. Maybe it is. But it does feel like they've committed to Drew long enough. Your mind tells you he's leaving Sunday as champ still. What's next? I don't know. I'm hoping Lashley, though, as I said.
Nah, the AJ prediction is very interesting. It's one I didn't really think of, but they have protected AJ so well. And you can see it with like how well they mesh together. Like, we saw their TLC match and, Miz getting involved, there's ladders involved. It's a different type of match than seeing two guys who know how to work in the ring for 20 minutes on Monday Night Raw. That's why I felt like this past week's Raw was one of the best in weeks. And that's because of that small 20-minute portion of that gauntlet and getting to see AJ versus Drew. Mm-hmm. Because I've said it for weeks. I said it on Wrestling Daily with Alex McCarthy that they should have just did AJ versus Drew, the rematch at Royal Rumble. I was like, they didn't need to bring in Goldberg. Goldberg kind of would fit in more. He's a bigger name. He would have fit more for WrestleMania than at the Royal Rumble. It just felt off. And I think that's why people like me thought Goldberg was going to win to set up Goldberg versus Drew at WrestleMania, because there's no big names for Drew to take down unless they're going to re-sign Brock Lesnar. But the AJ is a cool prediction because you could do AJ winning at the Elimination Chamber, do the rematch between Drew and AJ at Fastlane. You could still set up the Sheamus and Drew match, like you said, by having Sheamus cost him that match at Fastlane. So then you got two matches. And then Roman, he's the best thing going in WWE. You could put him in there with, Cesaro, Nakamura, Daniel Bryan. There's so many options on SmackDown that he would be fine without Edge.
And that point that you hit on there is key, because this isn't just about let's find the best 5 matches we can make. It's about the way they view it is like, here are all the puzzle pieces at play. We need to find a partner for all of them.
Yes.
So although it may seem in your traditional wrestling logic, maybe like, hang on, you're kind of killing Drew there. In their minds, it's like, no, just a different match. Like that's how they do it. So I think it could happen. We'll see.
So I have this question up right here. It's an interesting one. What's the possibility of the Fiend to return at Elimination Chamber? I just see the Fiend or Alexa distracting Orton, and that's how Orton gets eliminated from this chamber. I think we are well on our way to a Firefly Funhouse match between the Fiend and Randy Orton. We're going to get references to number 2s in duffel bags. We're going to get references to holding your junk and shaking hands. It's going to be so great. We're going to see a fake Cody, a fake Teddy, a fake Flair. Like, it's going to be great. I envisioned it in my head, and it's the only thing that might be able to match what Bray Wyatt was able to accomplish with John Cena last year. What's your prediction for Bray Wyatt at Elimination Chamber?
Firstly, I agree. I think it's such a perfect sequel to Cena, right? Like there's such a weird aura to Orton's history. It's perfect for what they do. But I think you're going to see Bray or the Fiend. I apologize. The Fiend. I think you're going to see him. I think you're going to see some insanity. Last thing I would like to consider is like what the Fiend Bray Wyatt comes up with when you say to him, hey, have you got a creative way to get into the Elimination Chamber? Listen, man, anything could happen, okay? We could see bodies switching out. Alexa could be sitting on top of the pod. I don't know. I have no clue, okay? There you go. Chamber pod on fire. There's no one. That's a good one. You give me a better one while I was talking here. I would expect him, but again, I do want to reiterate, in case this happens, I want to warn everyone and prepare them. We're going Funhouse here. Just don't be surprised if Randy Orton wins the title when that's the match at WrestleMania, okay? Just be careful. Everyone be wary. But I'm hoping you're going to get some wackiness with Bray, and we'll be at the races for a Funhouse match. I'm for it.
So we got a couple of more predictions here in the comments. I'm all for it too. At this point, Bray Wyatt, if he's going to entertain me, it's all good. George Yaman, he says, I wish Cena returned to face Drew. I would really enjoy that. I just feel like John Cena is so giving as a performer at this stage of his career, and being in there with Drew, that's a big enough name where it feels like a WrestleMania main event, and Drew will gain something by getting the victory over Cena and denying him the opportunity to eclipse Ric Flair's record.
So there's two things. Firstly, I agree. I don't think it's impossible either. The problem is when we're doing, silly shows like this where we talk ourselves into 101 possibilities, is Cena is in that category of like, if The Rock calls up and says, I'm working Mania, he's just in the match, right? All of this conversation is Ronda, same thing on the women's side. So like, dude, if Cena's in, none of the conversation we just had means anything. It's 100%. My only concern with a match would be, man, that's a tough, audience-wise, in terms of perception, it's a tough matchup for Drew, I feel. I feel like putting those guys on a microphone against each other. My mind goes back to the segment they did with Edge, where Edge was like, "Hey man, what's wrong with you? You just playing babyface here." Cena could kill him if he wants to. So it's a different way. I'm for the match, but the perception of it could be tough. But I'm for it.
Yeah, because that is the chance. Because people tend to forget. They remember how great the AJ Cena match at Royal Rumble 2017 was. They remember that, but they don't remember how John Cena murdered AJ Styles on the microphone, making references to him being like a small timer from Orlando and stuff like that. It was Cena can drop those bars. He's not rapping. He's not coming out with a rap album anytime soon. So his best bars are on the mic. And yeah, that would be the likelihood if he versed Drew McIntyre. But go ahead.
The other thing is, you're right about AJ, but AJ was a heel, right? So it's like, okay, laugh at AJ. If he does it to Drew, man, it's tough. But carry on.
And George David actually brought up, the best comparison to that is what he did to Roman in 2017. So that is a likely option. So that's why the Cena one, I think not too many people are talking about right now. But we got one more Elimination Chamber, and then following that, it's a big title match. But I consider this the more appealing Elimination Chamber. It's on the SmackDown side, and it's to determine who will verse Roman Reigns later on in the night. You got Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn versus Jey Uso versus King Corbin versus Daniel Bryan versus Cesaro. This one, the person who wins will verse Roman Reigns immediately after the contest. So I could realistically see this matchup kicking off the Elimination Chamber, kind of getting the SmackDown main event scene out of the way. But who do you see winning this one and versing Roman Reigns later on in the night, Joe?
There's a part of me that thinks this is a time for Bryan to win and lose like a 6-minute sprint, which is Bryan's way of saying, "There's your Roman match. Now let me go back to losing spit on TV." You know, that's my kind of outside. My guess is, I think you're giving Cesaro some love here, right? Yeah. We've done this cycle before. We're all for it. We all love Cesaro. It feels to me like Cesaro's going to win the Chamber. He's going to have a really cool 7-8 minute match with Roman. And then after that, it's a mystery what happens to Cesaro. But my heart says they're going to give him that much because they know they can almost steal a title match effectively. You know, I love Cesaro. I don't think he's been saved for WrestleMania. So if it isn't here, it's Fastlane. It would make a lot of sense to me, you know, having him be so courageous and admirable in defeat, but eventually it is defeat. That's what would be my guess, Cesaro.
So I'm going to make my prediction very quick. It's sweet. I'm also going to show this comment from Rick Ucchino. If we don't get Cesaro versus Reigns Sunday, what are we even doing? I think that is the best thing to say. Cesaro has to win this match on Sunday, at least the Elimination Chamber part. I think this is the perfect opportunity because Roman has really shown a skill that has been lost on WWE for years. And I think it's something that, you know, you watch AEW and New Japan a lot. You see it in their championship matchups where the guy that loses still gains a lot in defeat. And you don't see that very often in WWE, but that's been a consistent trait of Roman Reigns' Universal title run over the last couple of months. Whether it's Jey Uso across from him or Kevin Owens, both of those guys gained something and looked better in defeat against Roman Reigns. And I think he could do the same thing to Cesaro. Cesaro needs that really big push. We've been seeing like them heating him a little bit, but we haven't felt the push. Like victories over Daniel Bryan used to mean something until he decided the creative and said, you get a win, you get a win, you get put over, you get put over, everyone gets put over. So, you know, Cesaro getting a win over him doesn't mean as much as him winning the Elimination Chamber. And winning the Elimination Chamber, going into a fun 7-minute sprint against Roman Reigns and looking great in defeat will do a lot for him. And I think the WrestleMania route for him is Cesaro versus Seth Rollins. They are great friends. So Rollins is going to have a little bit of momentum because he is a major star and he doesn't have an assumed route to WrestleMania. And the fact that they did kind of angle his return around Cesaro, I think that's the route that they go for WrestleMania. And that's a great follow-up for Cesaro to keep up the momentum, is getting a win over Seth Rollins on the huge stage.
I agree. I mean, again, I don't want to be cynical or negative, but there is a hint of like, oh man, it feels like they could have done this an awful long time ago with Cesaro, right? But I'm happy for him to do it anytime. Like, you know, the guy deserves it. I'll say this much. If that's where they go on Sunday, it's going to be a bummer there is no audience. I mean, I know we're all used to it by now, but can you imagine people biting on the false finishes for Cesaro? Like, it would be a great moment. But I just wonder if they do that, if it's so good that they come out of the ring and they're like, Cesaro's got a winner at WrestleMania. That would be, because, you know, we saw Kofi, right? The Kofi thing was like, that was circumstantial, man. It was just so great that they felt it. Granted, there's no audience. I get that. But that'd be interesting because Cesaro, I mean, physically, is genuinely one of the great performers like you'll ever see. Like, this dude's not going to miss when he's put in his position. So I think we're, you know, after a lot of confusion and uncertainty, I think we're all united on this match. Cesaro for the win. I think that's what we're going for here.
Yes, we're in agreement here. Chris Lopez Pez says Roman versus Cesaro, take my money, WWE. John Elite also agrees with us. He thinks that Cesaro is going to win the Elimination Chamber. We got an interesting one here over on Facebook. Shruti says the Elimination Chamber match could also tease a potential alliance between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Both of them desperately need a new angle on SmackDown, and they are brilliant at putting heels together. I wouldn't see them playing heels together because I think that Kevin Owens is on a hell of a run as a babyface right now, and this is the best that he's been as a babyface since coming to WWE, in my opinion. Well, since his debut in NXT, because he was a babyface for a night there, but he's looked great as a babyface against Roman Reigns, and I think him versus Sami Zayn with the roles reversed, I think that would be a whole lot of fun, especially with Sami's character right now versus Kevin Owens being this anti-hero. They would be brilliant together.
I agree. The only thing I would say is, as much as I want that, I'm also kind of into the idea of like Kevin trying to bring back the old Sami Zayn. I mean, that could also be awesome. The point being, you just put those guys together and it's like, man, it's great TV, but I agree, when you look at what Kevin's WrestleMania is going to be, it's like, yeah, Sami Zayn will make an awful lot of sense. I do agree.
And they would finally get a WrestleMania match under their belt because that's the only thing missing from their epic rivalry that started way before WWE. And then we both picked Cesaro. So who wins? Cesaro versus the Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns, at the Elimination Chamber, Joe?
I mean, it would be a huge upset if anyone but Roman walks into WrestleMania as champ, right? Like, I think, to be quite honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if in a year's time you have me back here and Roman's still got that belt around his waist, because this is something different. You know, I'm not sure they've ever had a situation like this where their biggest star, so obviously their biggest star, on the male side anyway, is the heel champ. It's very unique, you know, so I don't think it's ending anytime soon, including at WrestleMania. So I think Roman is leaving Sunday as champ, whether it's Baron Corbin who comes out of the chamber or Cesaro or Sami Zayn. It could be anyone. I think Roman's leaving as champ.
Oh, dear God, do not remind us of the dog food matchup. Please, Joe. You gave us too many horror stories early on in this show. Do not remind us of the dog food match.
That's what I do, man. I'm sorry. It's my bad.
So that is the entire Elimination Chamber card for this coming Sunday. Roll through a couple of more comments before we sign off. We got Eric Travis for Elimination Chamber. Do you see Drew and Jeff, the last two for Chamber, and Drew pins Jeff, and Jeff is sad, but turn on Drew and Miz cash in to win? I do not want the Miz cash in the Money in the Bank successfully. What about you? But Jeff Hardy turning heel, that's a little bit interesting because we haven't seen that since TNA. But what about you, Joe?
Man, I mean, I laid out like 25 different things that could happen and forgot Miz was even a thing that existed. This is something, I'm glad this has been brought up by the chat. This is useful. The Miz, good point. I just can't fathom where you fit this Miz title reign in. But I assume they know because they took it off of him and then give it back. So it's a very good point you raise. Like, I assume Miz is somehow factored in here, and the Chamber is an awful, it's an awful timely place to do it. I don't know, man. If I start thinking about the Miz, my mind starts to melt a little bit. But maybe.
Hey, it is a possibility. It's in the realm of possibilities. But we talked about a lot of possible scenarios on our pay-per-view preview for WWE Elimination Chamber 2021. It's going to be this Sunday on the WWE Network, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Over for you, Joe, in the UK, 12 a.m. BST. Are you staying up for the Elimination Chamber on Sunday?
Well, I love pain. I love punishment. Of course, I'm staying up. I'll be up. I'll be rocking back and forth at 3 a.m. as Cesaro throws European uppercuts. No, I think it'll be a good show. Talking about it has actually made me more interested because the way we've just spoken about it, seems like there's 101 things that could happen. So I'm into it. I'll be up. I'll be up. I
commend you for your dedication, but thank you so much, Joe, for joining us on Sportskeeda Wrestling's WWE Elimination Chamber 2021 predictions and preview. please, Joe, tell everyone where they can follow you on Twitter, social media, all your work over at Fightful Wrestling. You're doing great stuff over there. Let them know.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun. You can follow me on Twitter at Joe Hulbert. Seems like a bad idea. I don't know. Do it at your own caution. It may be good. I'm not sure. But my work is on Fightful.com as well as Wrestling with Takes, which is my own kind of like bloggy deal. As was mentioned at the start, we have this terrible podcast called The Distraction on Tuesdays and Thursdays over Fightful. Again, if you like this kind of nonsense where we talk ourselves into circles, man, we got a lot for it over there. So it's been a pleasure doing this. A lot of fun.
Yes, I've been wanting to do something with Joe for a while, and this seemed like the best place to do it. But definitely, ladies and gents, go out of your way to watch Joe over on the Distraction podcast on Fightful Wrestling YouTube channel. He's doing great stuff over there with Jeremy Lambert. Those guys are great, and I'll be on there very soon. So I'm gonna be joining you on your domain, so that's gonna be a lot of fun. So you can follow me over on Twitter at True Heel SP3. You can also see my work on YouTube on True Heel Heat YouTube channel, daily content over there, show reviews, roundtable, podcasts, old school reviews, all great stuff over there at the True Heel Heat YouTube channel. So definitely check that out. And you can see me every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. BST on Wrestling Daily with Alex McCarthy. And you can see my written work over at Sportskeeda Wrestling. Joe, thank you so much for joining us. This has been the WWE Elimination Chamber 2021 predictions and preview. Any final remarks, Joe?
Listen, I'm just hoping for grins on Sunday, my friend. That's all I want. Just a good show. Let's not fall off the track here before WrestleMania. Let's keep building this. We've had fun today, right? Let's keep having fun on Sunday. I'm optimistic, and I'll say that much.
Absolutely, and I am as well. So we hope everyone watching enjoys the show on Sunday. Hope you enjoyed this show as well. Give this video a thumbs up. Share this video with all your wrestling fans, friends, family. Of course, subscribe to the SK Wrestling YouTube channel and like us on all social media platforms. So for Joe Hulbert, it has been me. It's me, your True Heel Phenom SP3. We are signing off. WWE Elimination Chamber 2021 predictions and preview. Until next time.